Good morning, everybody. It is Rollie, and we are back again with Chatting with Wisdom. And today we have Stacie, is it Kiselman? I should have asked.
Kiselman.
Kiselman. And so she's a fellow Ontarian. So this is actually kind of cool because I don't often get people in Ontario. So she's down south compared to me. So I'm in a small community up in northeastern Ontario, and Stacie's down south, closer to the Toronto region, I suspect, right? Thornhill?
Yeah.
So Stacie is a freelance writer and an author, and she's diagnosed with epilepsy after a car accident. She's been battling chronic illness and PTSD, and how she's learned to cope is through writing through journaling in a third-party perspective, which actually has turned into a book. So pretty impressive. Her aim is to reduce the stigma around invisible illnesses, and her book, 12 Years, A Woman, My Journey to Happiness, releases in November. So pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And this is Mental Health Awareness Month in Canada. So this is actually really just so fitting and so appropriate for what it is that's going on after having the World Health Organization just had the Mental Health Awareness Day on October 10th. So this is so appropriate and so fitting. And so welcome, Stacie. So how are you?
I am great. It's a beautiful Wednesday morning. Pretty cold, but that's okay. I'm staying positive. You know, my book is going to be released in probably around 2 weeks time. I'm happy. You know, I'm healthier. So I'm great. Thanks for having me.
So this is incredible. So tell me a little bit about your journey. So like, I know that you shared a little bit about that you were in a car accident after being diagnosed with epilepsy. So tell me a little bit more about your journey.
I was in a car accident around 2 weeks before graduating college. You know, I was just a 20-something-year-old woman, happy to, who had all these plans for after graduation. I was looking for a job. Everything was great. My only responsibilities were partying, what I would do on the weekends, and making my boyfriend happy. It was great. It was a great life. But then after the car accident, I think I didn't realize how severe the car accident was because I don't remember it myself. I was in a car accident with my husband, and it was hard. The car accident was actually harder on my husband because he had to, he was the one who had to pull me out of the car. He was the one who had to make sure I was okay and alive and everything else. So for me, it was harder because of the physical pain that I was going through at the time. And there were a lot of times where I physically couldn't go to interviews. Nobody would call me for interviews, or other reasons for which I don't know. I guess because I also have cerebral palsy, another illness there, right there. But after 6 months of endless job searching and recruiters always saying no to me, and mind you, I was in HR. I have a bachelor's degree in human resources. I also worked a little bit in human resources, so I know how recruiters work and do their jobs. But after 6 months of job searching, I really got tired of literally doing nothing and staring at the ceiling. I'm not the sort of person who can just do nothing with their life and feel useless. I want to feel useful to society, for myself. And I just started a business, a side hustle, so to speak. I just took my credit card, I made a website, and started promoting myself as a freelance writer. And I turned my passion of writing into a business, basically. It was supposed to be a temporary thing until I graduated, until I found a full-time job. But as time went on, more serious clients found me online. I got bigger projects, and now 4 years later, I'm still a freelance writer. Nice. But then after in May, just as I was starting my business, in May 2016, I suffered a seizure, and then I was diagnosed with epilepsy, which really took a stop or pause, more like, to my business, and that was hard.
Well, and especially because that becomes who you are, right? So like that, your business becomes you. And so, and when you have to stop it, then it makes a huge difference. So,
Yeah.
but so are you back at it again now, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. And especially because it becomes who I am, but also the business was my plan B, right? And because I had before, when I was in school, when I was 20 something, I had all these plans for my career. I wanted to be the best of the best. I wanted to just go, 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 right? As just a normal 20 something women do when graduating college. But that was, my business was my plan B. And then when I was diagnosed with epilepsy, it felt like even plan B wasn't working. So it's like, how many plans do I need to make in order for it to work?
And that is stressful. Like that in itself is stressful, right? Not knowing where you're going, what's going on. And then when you have health issues on top of that, it makes it even that much more challenging to be able to function.
Yes.
Right. So,
and when you have a relationship also, and when you're I was also getting married at the time. So that also was stressful. So it's like health issues, career, marriage, what else? Like how much can one person handle in their life?
Well, they say that we only get whatever it is that we can handle. And some days I wonder whether or not that's true, right? So
that is so true. I was just thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, wow.
It's
just a wow moment.
But right now, at this particular moment, and we all go through that, right? So depending on, and you've had a lot of different things that have actually happened in your life. But we've all gone through those different moments. So even somebody who hasn't gone through as many things as you have, we get through a point where it's like, seriously, how much more can I deal with? Because I don't know that I can deal with any more, right?
Yes. Yes.
So it makes a huge difference in our perspective. So your topic is self-growth and self-discovery after trauma. So tell me a little bit more about that, the self-growth and self-discovery.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? Well, when I was diagnosed with epilepsy, I had a period of very rough few years. After that first seizure in May 2016, I was seizure-free for a year and a half. Everything was great. Everything was going back on track. I just felt like everything was on top, and it was amazing. I was getting married. And again, I had all these plans for my plan B or C. But then a year and a half later, I had seizures again, but this time I had I had complications. And what became my new normal was having 50 seizures a day, every day.
Wow.
If not more. And I didn't have very good doctors. I would say I didn't have very good people around me. And I had a very rough time because I didn't feel like I had that support around me. Not only was I going through health struggles, and I didn't have that support. And there were times where I would have seizures around people, and that's the rotation of an invisible disability becoming a visible disability. And how do you hide that? And you can't. It's embarrassing. It's life-threatening, but it is what it is. But with the right treatment and with the right doctors that I found overseas in Israel, in my home country, everything went back on track, and I'm healthier again. But then once the seizure stopped, what became my new normal, I had another new normal of adapting to life without seizures or having less seizures. And then I started having symptoms of PTSD. And I was never officially diagnosed with it, but in a sense, I have a PTSD in my family. And so I was lucky in a sense that I have somebody around me, close to me, that can say, hey, you have this new struggle in your life that you need to cope with, that we need to figure out what to do. And then as I struggled with PTSD and my new life of um, adapting, because it's constant adapting to a new life, right? And I wanted to find new ways uh, of coping with PTSD without taking any medication. And I found that you know, taking walks, uh, exercising, even having even coloring books helped me. And but then I found that writing helped. Uh, Writing helped me, and not in a sense of freelance writing as in writing for other people, but writing for myself. And I started journaling, so to speak. I started journaling all of my life. And there's another story in why 12 Years a Woman is because there's another story in my life that really that I really struggled with personally, and that's something that will only be in the book. But it's something that was really hard for me. It was something that I never talked about with anyone really. But it affected my mental health, and it affected I believe it affected my chronic illness. I believe it had something to do with it. And so I started journaling all of my angers, all of my frustrations, all of my thoughts, all of the things that I never talked about with anyone, and all of the things that I never said out loud to anyone.
Yeah.
And as I was started learning about epilepsy and about PTSD and about car accident survivors, I realized that I wasn't alone in this. There are so many people who are car accident survivors. There are so many people who are diagnosed with epilepsy, PTSD. 1 in 26 individuals are diagnosed with epilepsy in their lifetime. 1 in 4 struggle with PTSD. And so I saw it as an opportunity really to share my story with others and have them understand and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Because it's not like something that happiness doesn't just go, like it's not like just like one moment it's like, oh, I'm happy. No, it takes years and years and years of hard work, determination, struggles as well. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is happiness at the end of the tunnel. And even that happiness at the end of the tunnel is even better. You appreciate life so much more.
Well, and even so, one of the things that you said that was really interesting is that there's so it's not like bam, it doesn't just happen overnight. And then so as you've moved through it and as you've worked through it, but then there's also moments where we kind of slip back into that moment, right? So slip back into like those old feelings and that old overwhelm and things like that. But it's just being able to use the tools that you've actually talked about of being able to pull yourself back out of it so that you don't get dragged back into that cycle.
Yes, and we all have bad days, whether you are struggling with a mental illness or not. We all have bad days, and there's a stigma around mental health specifically, mm-hmm. and epilepsy, but mental health specifically. I found that people think it's just like a day of having a bad mood. It's not a bad mood. It's actually a chemical reaction in your brain, and so we gotta stop calling it people just a bad mood. It's not. Just because you have a bad day doesn't mean you're struggling with depression, or because you're struggling with depression, you shouldn't say you're just in a bad mood. No.
Yeah. And you're right. There is a huge difference between simply having a bad mood and getting up on the wrong side of the bed to having some the best way to describe it for me is overwhelm in terms of those emotions, right? So when you're struggling with any kind of mental health issues, and it's that overwhelm of not being able to get through, and it's not just, okay, well, I'm going to have a cup of coffee and it's going to be good and it's going to be gone tomorrow. Like it's going to be gone in an hour.
And
right?
One thing that you said, it's actually very interesting. As an epileptic, I cannot have coffee. I stopped drinking coffee because, drinking coffee, I get sleepy deprived, and sleep deprivation is a seizure trigger, so I can't have coffee.
And I don't drink coffee ever, so.
And you're not epileptic, I'm assuming. Sorry, I'm assuming.
I know I'm not epileptic. No, thankfully I'm not. But no, I've never drank coffee, but it's that everybody's go-to, right? So it's like, oh, first thing in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I don't have a cup of coffee. I have a glass of water, like.
Yeah, and that was very hard for me to quit. I mean, I went from drinking probably 5 cups of coffee to drinking none, and because of epilepsy. And the one beautiful thing about epilepsy is that now I get to live a much healthier lifestyle than I would have without epilepsy. So it's like I got to know my body in so many different ways. I get to have this beautiful relationship with my body and my mind, all thanks to epilepsy. Because again, when you're 20 years old, you don't think about that. And that's like the lifestyle changes and the new normal, so to speak, that I had to change so much about my life. I can't go out until 4 a.m. I can't go party. I can go to clubs. And, that was hard for me too. And that was part of my PTSD, but that's what I have to do. That's what I have to do to live a healthier lifestyle. And that's okay with me. I'd rather not go party. I'd rather not go clubbing with my friends, but know that I get to live a healthier life and potentially, live a better life.
Yeah. And it's really hard. And it's hard for the people that are around us that are used to doing some of the things, right? So you talked about the change in lifestyle. And so how did that affect relationships around you with the people that were around at that time?
So much. I had not a lot of people know anything about epilepsy. I mean, people just think it's seizures, and people don't know why seizures come. And it's like they just said, oh, it's not gonna affect you. It's not gonna you're not gonna have any reaction. And a lot of the times I felt that I had to explain everything to people. But then over the years, I realized that it's not my job to explain to people anything in my life. I live my life as I should be. I live my life as I need to. And I realized that if they don't understand my situation, that's okay. But it's not my job to explain my life to people. It is my job to listen to my body. The only thing I need to listen to is my body. And there were a lot of the times where I sacrificed my health for other people. So there were a lot of the times where I did go clubbing because I wanted to make somebody else happy. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it triggered me, and it complicated my health to a point where there were times where I felt that epilepsy was going to kill me. And people do pass away of epilepsy. One in 1,000 of individuals who are diagnosed with epilepsy do pass away of SUDEP. And that's not talked about enough, but it's something very important that we need to speak about, that epilepsy is a deadly illness. So we got to take it seriously. And even those that, I mean, I wish that I could have, my epilepsy private, but I couldn't, because I had seizures around people, and people didn't know what to do. It was scary, but again, it's explanation isn't necessary. If you want an explanation, just make it education rather than explanation. And again, even I can't say it enough, but there are, even if you don't have epilepsy, you got to realize that it is something that is invisible a lot of times, unless the person around you has a seizure.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who don't open up about their struggles. So you might not even know it, but somebody that somebody that's even close to you has epilepsy. So you gotta be kind. You gotta be understanding. You gotta understand people's boundaries. You don't need to agree with them, but you gotta respect them, and that's a very important word: respect. So I can't say it enough.
Well, and that is like a really key word, right? So that respect. So regardless of why somebody's reacting some way or why somebody's choosing not to do something is really important for us to be able to take that step to be able to just say, okay, so that's not going to work for you. And especially when you already know what it is that people are triggered by, right? So somebody that was in your circle or that is in your circle and you're like, no, I really can't do that because it will trigger my epilepsy, and they're like completely dismissing it. They have absolutely no idea. And
Yeah.
so
And I had to cut a lot of people out of my life. I basically, most of the people I had before the car accident, most of the friends I had before the car accident, before epilepsy, are no longer in my life because of that. Mostly because of that, because they did not respect my boundaries. And even if, like, the why, to me now, I can say it really doesn't matter. If regardless of whether the person has epilepsy or not, it really doesn't matter. If the person doesn't want to go clubbing, if the person doesn't want to drink alcohol, it's their decision, right? So respect, that's all. Respect.
yeah, absolutely. And so, and that is one of the things that you talk about when you were talking about like the invisible illnesses, right? So like that is, so like you said, with epilepsy, some people are able to keep that private and not share it, and mainly because of the stigma around it and the challenges that come with it. But the importance of people around you knowing is even that much more important, because like you said, knowing what to do, how to do it, how to make sure that that you're safe, but also being able to know what some of the what some of your triggers are to be able to help avoid some of those things, right? So for some people, and I know that there's different, there's so many different triggers, but like
Yeah.
there's the flashing lights. And so like I know that I had a friend who when he would start to feel that he was going to have an epilepsy, like because he would feel it coming on most of the time, not all the time. Sometimes it would just come on very quickly, but most of the time he knew ahead of time because he was able to tune into his body that way. And he would be able to say, okay, these are some of the things that I need. And so then we would know that he's about to have a seizure, and we were able to help him kind of get set up and do the things that he needed to be able to do. Whereas I had another friend who it would just happen, and we would have absolutely no idea when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, but knowing what to be able to do when it was happening to make sure that that she stayed safe was important. And so it's just really important for us to be able to have those. And like you said, it's education. And what works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for the other person. And right. So,
Yeah.
but
I read somewhere there are around 60 types of seizures. To me, that was crazy. I recently read it. I've had epilepsy for about 4 years, and I never knew. I knew there were about 4 types of seizures. I never knew there were 60. That's insane to me. Yeah. And everybody has different triggers and different types of seizures. But it's all about learning learning so much about your body. And it's avoiding those triggers doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to not have a seizure. Yeah. But it's less of a risk. And if I can avoid having that risk, I will make it. And it's like if you have like you said, you had 2 friends that have epilepsy, and like you said, that there are different types of triggers. There are different types of people can have different types of epilepsy, and not every epileptic is the same. But a lot of people have this misconception that if they know one type of epilepsy, they know everything. And I had this types of ignorance myself, actually, before I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I knew nothing about epilepsy. And I find that unless you go through it, you kind of just refuse to learn it yourself, because it doesn't affect you. But at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt to learn anyway. And I hope that's what my book will do, is that I hope that not only will people be able to relate to all that I've gone through, but people will be able to learn for what I've gone through as well.
Which is really important, right? So that learning piece and being able to have that importance. And but one of the things that that you had said is that you had to cut like a lot of different people out of your life. And so I just wanted to kind of go back to that point, because one of the things that and especially because we're talking about mental health, and I know that it's that particular situation was related to your seizures, but that also still affects your mental health. But when we start cutting people out of our lives because we need to, right? So or because we've chosen to leave or whatever, but like when we start cutting these people out, we go through a grievance process, right? So we start losing, we've lost people, we've lost how, and so it is a loss. And that is something that people tend to forget, is that when we do cut somebody out of our lives, we miss that friendship, we miss that connection for however that connection was, right? Mm-hmm. So healthy or unhealthy, whatever that is, but we still miss those particular things, right? So when you talked about having your accident and not being able to continue to do the things that you were normally doing, you've got that loss of identity, right? Because it is, right? So you lose that piece of you because now you have to adjust to a whole new life. And then, like you said, then you ended up with treatment and things were better. And then you had to readjust again to a new normal, right? So it's always that readjusting. And so it's that loss of whatever was normal to us before, even though it wasn't normal, right? So like, even though that was like, it was really bad, it was like not good, but you adapted to that. And then when it shifts again, you have to adapt again. And then you've got this sense of loss. And so that's with people, that's with your lifestyle, with the things that are going on. And so like you said, you've had to shift and shift and different things that it's like, here's my plan A, plan B, and now plan C, right? So like all these different things that like now I have to adjust with. And so that in itself is a challenge. And that is something that we also need to be able to remember, is as people are shifting and as people are growing, it becomes a shift. And we still have some struggles with, even though it's like, okay, well, this is better for me. And if I'm doing these specific things, whether it's diet or exercise or whatever it is, like this is but then I'm missing some of those other things that are no longer there. And people don't realize that. And I think that that's really important. And that was one of the things that you said. And I really like how you address that, because I don't think that gets addressed enough.
Yes. And, these are the people that were in my life back then were people that I was friends with for years, almost a decade. So that was a loss for me, because those were people that I thought were my friends, and they were my friends. I find that some friendships, they have an expiration date, and that's okay. Some friendships aren't meant to be lasted for a lifetime. Those were friends that I needed at the time of my, partying phase. But when it comes to my health and my success, those people were not right for me. And those were people in the way of my health and my success. Yeah. So those were people that weren't the greatest of supporters in my health and in my career. Because to them, a career, people have their own definitions of success, and that's okay. But again, it comes down to respect, and those people were not respectful to my health and my own definition of success. I had a lot of people making fun of me. I had a lot of people making fun of me because it took me longer to be in school. I had a lot of people making fun of me because of the seizures and calling it triggers. And that's okay. That's their doing. That is not my. But I realized that I had a lot of years of tolerating it. But at the end of the day, I realized that I don't need to be the one tolerating it. Yeah, I need to be the one thinking of my health and my body first and foremost, because my relationship with myself and my body are the two most important relationships I will ever have. It is more important than my health is more important than, you know, my career, my friendships, my relationship with my husband. Because if I don't have my health, I won't be good at anything else.
Yep.
And that's something that I had to learn with, and almost accept myself. Because again, it's like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. But then what is getting me through every single day is the reality that I need to respect myself, and I need to love myself and listen to my body before I do anything else.
Yeah. And that is so important that you were able to learn that, because a lot of times we struggle with that, right? So it's like going to get judged. Other people are going to have their own opinion, and it's just so important for us to be able to do that. So this has been hugely enlightening for me, as well as for our viewers. I'm sure people are a little bit more quiet than normal. But if you guys are catching the replay, #replay, let us know that you guys are catching the replay. And if you guys have any questions for Stacie, then please make sure that you, or even comments, right? So even some feedback as to some of your own experiences, or experiences that other family members of families or friends have been going through in terms of the PTSD or the mental health or the seizures, the epilepsy, the car accidents, like all these different experiences, I think are really important for us to be able to talk about, because like you said, it doesn't get talked about enough, right? Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize, like I knew that there were, that the rates were higher for people dying from epilepsy, but I didn't realize that it was 1 in 1,000, right? So which is not very much. Right. So 1,000, like our high school, when I was growing up, I don't know what the high school numbers are right now, but when I was growing up, like that was one of our kids in high school. Right. Yeah. So our high school was 1,000 kids when we were growing up. And so like that would mean one of our peers had passed away from seizures. Right. So it's not that much. And so it's really important for us to be able to be educated, and whether it is to do with epilepsy or any other kind of illnesses, is being able to learn, right? So people that are diabetic, like again, that's another one of those hidden illnesses, and it's very prevalent, and it's all these different things that we need to make sure that, so like bringing a cake everywhere to be able to celebrate isn't necessarily the best thing, right? Yeah. So and I know that for some people that have epilepsy, I know that sugar is a trigger for some people as well, right? So like there's all these different things that we just need to be more cognizant about. And so, but being able to share. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you and learning more about your book, and being able to, I'm looking forward to that. And like I said, fellow Ontarian, I don't get to have that very often, that I get to interview someone from Ontario. And so this is pretty cool. And so definitely want to be able to stay in touch and be able to connect. And so thank you so much for being able to join us. And like I said, everybody who is watching the replay, then please let us know if you have any questions, or if there's anything else that you would like to discuss or share, then that would be awesome. So thanks again so much. And I will meet up with the rest of you next Wednesday for Chatting with Wisdom, and we will. So happy! What are we? Mental Health Month, and so I'm doing a self-care month challenge this month. So like that's one of the things that I've been doing is self-care because of the Mental Health Awareness Month. And so this is pretty great, and thank you. And like I said, perfect timing. Like how perfect and fitting is this with having this being our focus this month in
and I realized recently that it's also Disability Awareness Month, so it's perfect, and hopefully your viewers learn something.
Yeah, and we're not on a replay, Chris. We're still live. So Chris just hashtagged replay. So but we are signing off now, and I will chat with everybody soon. And